So yeah, so we're here to celebrate Sangha Day, and yeah, well, I'm glad to be giving a talk about Sangha because it's very close to my heart. The centre is very close to my heart. The Cambridge Mandala is very close to my heart. Something I've been involved in. Been here for about 35 years. So this talk is going to be both a celebration of Sangha. It's going to be a bit of a ramble in a way. It's going to be a ramble around Sangha, and hopefully you'll get a bit of an idea of me. There'll be a few bits of me in here, a few bits of my experience. So I've scattered those about because some of you know me well, some of you maybe don't know me so well. But I'm going to be looking at and exploring Sangha. So maybe trying to answer a few questions. Well, what does it mean to go for refuge to the Sangha? What does that mean? Yeah. What is the value of Sangha? You know, what's the value of Sangha for ourselves, for our friends, our community, and what's the value for the wider world? And finally, how can we deepen our practice of Sangha? You know, it's a practice. Sangha isn't just something we involved ourselves in, it's a practice. So I want to draw out some of those questions. Yeah. So I gave myself, it's good. Sometimes you get given a title and you think, oh, how do I work around what I want to say to that title? But I chose the title, so that's good, isn't it? I like that. So I gave myself the title, An Ever Wider Circle. Yeah. And I imagine most of you know where that comes from. It comes from the threefold puja. I really like the threefold puja. I mean, I like the puja that Arthur Siddhi did this morning, the Bodhicitta. That was really lovely and really evoked that quality of the bodhicitta, which is, in a way, is the heart of the Sangha. But I also like the threefold puja, which was written by Bhante Sangharakshita. And that phrase, an ever wider circle, comes from one of the sections of the threefold puja. It comes from the reverence to the three jewels. So I just read that little section. So it says, we reverence the Sangha and aspire to follow it. The fellowship or the community of those who tread the way. As one by one, we make our own commitment, an ever-widening circle, the Sangha grows. So in a way, it's quite simple. It's nice and simple. But there's a lot in there. And as I was thinking about this talk, I thought, oh, there's quite a bit in there that you could unpack, really. So I'm going to start my talk by looking at some of the phrases in that section, the reverence to the Sangha jewel. Yeah. So it starts off, we reverence the Sangha. Yeah. So reverence, that's an interesting word. So I looked it up, as one does. And one of the definitions was that it means holding in profound respect. So reverence, it holds something or someone in profound respect. It's about valuing. Yeah, reverence is about expressing our value, our respect, our valuing. We want to praise, we want to adorn, we want to offer gifts to that which we hold high, which gives us meaning. We could say worship. So in a way, our Siddhi was talking about this, that the puja and puja in general you could say it's a ritual enactment of our valuing. So we might value something, but actually to enact it out in a beautiful, poetical way, it helps us. It really helps us to remind ourselves of what is really important for us, what we value. So what is it? What is it we value when we're looking at the Sangha jewel? Well, the first thing you could say is we value the lineage of teachers that goes right back to the Buddha. So it's such a rich lineage, 2,500 years, all those practitioners going back to the Buddha, all those different traditions. So we could say that the Sangha started when, at the same time as the Dharma started in a way. The Buddha had his realization and he went to his 5 friends, the other ascetics, and after a while he managed to communicate the Dharma. And once he'd communicated the Dharma, once at least one of them had realized the Dharma, well, the Sangha had come into being as well. So that's the origin of Sangha, really. And personally, there's a little thing that I like to think, I don't know if this is doctrinal, but I like to think that actually the Buddha's enlightenment wasn't fully realized until he communicated. Yeah, it wasn't fully communicated, it wasn't fully realized. There's something I think in the communication of that realization that actually fulfills and in a way brings fully into being the enlightenment experience. There's something that emerges. So I'm not going to unfold that and explain that. I'll just sort of leave that there a bit. But I think it's something worth thinking about, that the value of communication, what emerges, the qualities that emerge in the dialogue that we have with each other. There's something special in that dialogue. Maybe you have a feeling for this when you're in a study group, that you come with a particular point, but actually what emerges is something that is unexpected, an unexpected realization about yourself or the other person or about the Dharma. There's something that emerges in that special space of communication between people. And I think there's something in that, a particular quality of the enlightenment experience comes out there. You may one of the teachings that emerged later in Buddhism was the 3 kayas. So you have the 3 bodies of the Buddha. So there's the Dharmakaya, which in a way is the Dharma itself, is enlightenment, the principle of enlightenment that's there permeating the whole universe. And then there's the Nirmanakaya, the Shakyamuni Buddha himself. That's that principle actually manifests in a particular person, a particular human being that lived 2,500 years ago. But then you have the Sambhogakaya. And somehow I think that sort of is there between the principle of enlightenment and the manifestation in a particular person. And that's the Sambhogakaya, I think, as well touches on the quality of communication, what happens in the dialogue between the principle and the manifestation. There's a communication there. And there's something in this, I feel, that's at the essence of Sangha. It's the enlightenment experience communicated between practitioners, yeah. So anyway, that's a little bit of a ramble offside. Hopefully I won't do too many of those in this talk. But so I'm saying what we value in the Sangha goes right back to the Buddha, and it's the lineage of teachers that flow on from the Buddha. So initially there were those men and women who were followers of the Buddha who at some point realized they had insight into the nature of what the Buddha had experienced. And this is traditionally known as the Arya Sangha. So the Arya Sangha is one of the Sangha, is the Sangha of those who've really seen the nature of things, and they may not be quite enlightened yet, but they're moving irreversibly in that direction. So traditionally, in reverencing the Sangha, we reverence the Arya Sangha. So this is more the technical, as it were, Sangha. So this great lineage, these great exemplars of the Dharma, this Sangha of the past, is something that I think is really important to connect with. As I say, there's the initial enlightened followers of the Buddha who gained insight. And then through the ages, through all the different traditions in China, in Tibet, in Japan, there are so many other great teachers, great siddhas, great champions of the Dharma. And their example is really inspiring. In a sense, they're still with us if we can bring them to mind. Their life stories are very uplifting. So so these great exemplars are also great guides. Each of these teachers was keen to work out, how can I communicate the Dharma in this context, whether it's China or Japan or in these conditions. Each of these great teachers wanted to really communicate the Dharma, and they taught the Dharma in their own way. So we've got so much there's so much benefit that we have this huge lineage of teachers that are a guide to us still today. They still speak to the human condition. They still speak to us today. So I think reflecting on these teachers, one can only feel reverence and gratitude for these teachers of the past. And of course, in Tree Ratna, we have a refuge tree. We have the refuge tree. It's not here today, but we have a tree which it's something we can visualize, which just reminds us of the value of these teachers of the past and what they've given us over the years. I think one of the many, many gifts of Sangharakshita is as a translator, and in a way, one of the things he's done is he's enabled us to benefit from this lineage by translating their teachings, their Dharma, to us today. So we have that great lineage. Yeah. So finally, as well as being great exemplars of the Dharma, and their life stories, I think, are really interesting to read and explore. As well as being teachers, they're also what we might call bearers of the archetype. Yeah, often these practitioners of the past, their lives have been mythologized in some ways. It's there isn't a word archetypalized, is there?
There is now.
There is. Thank you. Well, it's almost like their life stories have been modified to more easily communicate the archetypes, the qualities that they embodied, the different qualities of enlightenment. Obviously, Padmasambhava is a good example. His life is full of myth and story, and that can really help us to connect and motivate us. So that first phrase, we reverence the Sangha. We reverence this lineage of teachers, of exemplars, of bearers of the archetype. The second line, though, is that we aspire to follow them. Yeah. So it's not just valuing them, not just seeing, admiring their lives or being moved by their lives, but we want to follow them. There's an action, there's a movement. Yeah. We want to follow in their footsteps. So we're moved to action. And of course, you'll be familiar that's traditionally called going for refuge. It's placing our heart upon what we value, and it leads to action, it leads to movement. Our aspiration to follow the path moves into action. Yeah. And in this case, in the Sangha, one of the things I'm going to return to in this talk is something that Bhante talked about. And he talked about Sangha as what it means is really always coming back to being in relationship with others. So whether it's the teachers of the past or our own Sangha or our friends, it's the movement to come back to being in relationship. So I found that very intriguing. I found that, I'm still thinking about that. But what does it mean to be in relationship with others, to be in a deep, deep relationship? Maybe it means, in terms of the teachers of the past, it means studying their teachers, reading about their lives, allowing our imagination to step into the story of their lives. So before moving on, I just want to sort of say that I think this is an important part of going for refuge to the Sangha, is valuing, connecting with putting in the time and the imagination to connect with the teachers of the past, both their teachings and their example, their lives. And I think if we make that effort, then we get something back in a way that is not a one-way dialogue. We feel we're spoken to by those teachers of the past. They can be alive and they can be with us now. So the next line here is the fellowship of those who tread the way. So fellowship or community that tread the way. So for me, this line reminds me, it reminds us that the Sangha is not just those teachers of the past, but we're fortunate enough to have our own Sangha. Yeah, we have our own spiritual community, our very own fellowship. Well, that is incredibly rare. It's incredibly rare that we're able to have a Sangha in our time, as it were. And this might be called, traditionally, this might be called the Mahasangha. Yeah. So it's all those, Mahasangha is all those who, in varying degrees, are committed to following the Buddhist path. Whether they be ordained, whether they be a monk or lay, both in our tradition and in other Buddhist traditions. This is the Mahasangha. So I think it's useful to at least imaginatively connect with our whole Buddhist tradition, all these different traditions. We can connect with them all, but we're very lucky to have our own Sangha, our own community. Yeah, and it isn't perfect. We all know it isn't perfect. I won't go into that. So I'm here talking very much about an ideal, and we know that the Sangha isn't perfect, but it's very good, isn't it? It's very good. Yeah. So I think for me, doing this talk, reflecting on the Sangha, just made me really appreciate how fortunate I am to have such good friends in the Sangha. To be able to have a community that I feel comfortable with, I feel at ease. It's a great boon. And after 50 or more years of Triratna, we do now have teachers that have a lot of experience, yeah, a lot of depth. And there's quite a variety of teachers in Triratna. So we are fortunate to be in a community where there are at least some people who are, well, more than a little way ahead of ourselves. That's my feeling, and that's a great boon, I think. And also, I just wanted to point something out that I think maybe we might take for granted here in Triratna is we do have these teachers. We do have people who have practiced for longer and have a bit more experience. But what is stressed within our tradition is the exploration of the Dharma is very much an exploration of the Dharma. It's not, we don't assert or I think overemphasize the teacher as opposed to the pupil, as it were. We meet in groups, we explore things, and I'm always surprised what I learn. I always learn things from people who are more experienced, but I often learn things from people who are less experienced, and that's very much the flavour of Triratna. We do very much value. I very much value those with more experience, especially in particular areas. But I really appreciate that our study groups, our investigation of the Dharma is a mutual exploration as well. Even our teacher and founder, Sangharakshita, he was drawn out. Some of his best teachings are in seminars, where he met with order members, and without meeting with other people, I think much of what he taught wouldn't be drawn out. So that's something, if you're with someone who you think is a bit more experienced, it's like you can give something to them by taking an interest in their Dharma and drawing out what they know. Sometimes drawing out things that they didn't even know they knew. So that's a value, I think. So moving on in this verse of reverence to the Sangha jewel. So the next line is one by one. Yeah, one by one, and we make our own commitment. So again, there's something in here, I think, just to remind ourselves with. This line reminds us that the spiritual community, as opposed to the group, is made up of individuals, at least ideally. You could say it's a coincidence of spiritual aspiration. Yeah, it's a free association of individuals. That's really important. There's no coercion. There's no subtle or gross. It's not in the base we don't meet on the basis of dependence on each other or control. That's really important. Again, maybe there are times when we don't quite live up to this ideal, but that is there in principle, and it's a touchstone that we can come back to. Yeah, the Sangha is a free association, based on love, other regard, compassion. Yeah, and it's a very rare thing, as I said, and it's easy to take for granted. So yes, we make our own commitment. So as I say, only individuals can really make a commitment to the Sangha, the spiritual community. And I think it's a sign of a true spiritual community, a true Sangha, that the Sangha really encourages personal responsibility. It encourages that in us all. In a way, this thing of personal agency is through awareness, through expanding our field of awareness, we gain greater choice and agency in our lives. And that's really important. That's a characteristic of the Sangha, practicing the Dharma. As we become more aware, our agency expands. Yes. And with that more choice and a greater degree of individuality, we will have more influence in the sense of connecting and being effective in the world. I just wanted to mention a little bit about commitment. Fun enough, we mentioned this word commitment, and I was thinking, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? Well, you could say commitment is a flow of volitions towards a particular goal. So it means consistently applying, or the ability to consistently apply ourselves to go in a direction we want to go in. And that requires integration. It's difficult. It's not easy to be consistent in our volitions, in our commitment. And in a way, that's one of the things that Sangha is trying to help us to help us with that, with our commitment. So we make an individual commitment, but importantly, it's within the context of shared values, principles, and practice. So it's a choice. It's a choice to be involved in the Sangha. So yes, it's a special quality of the spiritual community that it combines these different things. There's mutual support, there's inspiration that we gain, encouragement along the path, and it's on the basis of shared values, but it's not imposed, it's freely chosen. And within the Sangha, there's support to enhance our individuality, our personal responsibility, our individual agency. So finally, yes, as we make our own commitment, an ever-widening circle, the Sangha grows. Yeah. So the last line of this section. So to me, this line communicates the desire to share. We've benefited from the Sangha. We've got something out of the Sangha. It's only a natural response that we want to share that. We want to the open hand of friendship, and we want to welcome others. And in a way, the Dharma is the greatest gift we can share. Yeah. So if you've really experienced Sangha, if you've felt the benefit of Sangha, then I think you'll want to share it. You want to welcome others into the Sangha because you're convinced that that's what they need. Now, I know some people have difficulty with the idea of Buddhism as a proselytizing religion, as it were, that it goes out in that way. And maybe some people have had a bad experience in other religions, with missionaries and that sort of thing. But maybe it's useful to think in terms of our communicating the Dharma. Well, spreading Sangha is not about, like being a Dharma bore, as it were, just sort of going on about the Dharma whenever you have the opportunity to speak. It's not about threatening damnation or any kind of coercion like that. Not even subtly. Well, and importantly, I think it's not out of any insecurity. I think that's really important, that as Buddhists, we should be, if we're happy to be a Buddhist, we should be happy to be the only Buddhist. Yeah, the only Buddhist. We don't want others to become Buddhists just to assuage an insecurity, our own insecurity, our own identity. So if we're responding to another, if we're going out to others, it needs to be out of seeing a real need in another. Yeah, be the particular need of another, responding to suffering, and clearly where there's some receptivity in the other party. So again, this comes back to going for refuge to Sangha is chiefly this coming back to being in relationship. So we need to, so what does it mean to be in relationship? In any relationship, if we need to be a human being first, we need to care, we need to respond to the individual. But sometimes there will be a receptivity. Sometimes there's a need, or sometimes there's a moment where you can communicate what the Sangha has to offer, what the Buddhist path has to offer. So I want to talk now a little bit about my own initial experience when I first came along. I was living in Manchester at the time. I was only 18. I just started university in Manchester. You weren't there then, were you? A bit later on, yeah. And I came along to a meditation class, and very quickly, almost immediately, there was something different about the communication. There was something different about the communication I encountered. There's something about the quality of the communication. And I hadn't really experienced that before. Something new, something special, yeah. And even today, I've struggled to say, what was that quality? What was that about? Particularly, there were two friends, Ratnaguna and Subhadra, who I'm still very much friends with, but it was something about the quality of their communication which really struck me. They were both very relaxed. The communication was immediate. They were attentive and welcoming. They were warm, friendly, and interested, and there was an emotional openness that was slightly took me by surprise. It's just a kindly attention, which was really lovely. The other thing that really struck me initially was the innocent way how they delighted and rejoiced in each other's company and their qualities in a very unself-conscious manner. I hadn't heard that before. Previously, I'd only seen that in, some people were in a romantic sexual relationship. So there was a quality of that openness, but outside those romantic ties, as it were. There's just a loving friendship that I saw and I encountered myself. And it was just really, really attractive. So I think it's sort of interesting thinking back to one's first, what was it like, your first contact, your first few contacts with the Sangha? What was that like? What quality did it have? But certainly for me, I was hooked by that, the quality of that communication. That's something I wanted more of. Yeah. For me, it wasn't initially the meditation or even the conceptual teachings of the Buddha that attracted me, although quite quickly they came in and also drew me into the Sangha. So that's for me, that's interesting, that initial quality, that atmosphere, something to reflect on. And as I got more involved with these Buddhists, slowly, I was a very cautious person, so I was very tentative. It took me months, years. But as I slowly got more involved, I had a sense of really belonging in the community that I felt really relaxed in. I felt happy to be in. I wasn't asked to give up any of my individuality. In fact, people were encouraging me to take responsibility for myself and my mental states. That was very, very positive. So that combination of intimacy, shared values, I had a sense that these were kindred spirits. Yeah. And that really drew me in. So as I say, I think it's quite useful to reflect back occasionally to one's own first contact with the Sangha. And yeah, what was that like? Yeah. So such reflections as this, I think it's useful for ourselves because we can forget what the Sangha brings to us and how different it is maybe from other communication. But also, I think it's really useful in reminding ourselves this in relation to new people who come along to the centre. Yeah, are we welcoming? Are we giving the welcome to newcomers that we received ourselves? Yeah. So I think that's something to think about. Are we congruently embodying those qualities of friendship, warmth, connection, attentiveness? That's something that I've been reflecting on. So anyway, as I became more involved, my initial contact moved into more deeper involvement. In doing so, the personal benefits of being involved with the Sangha, began to unfold in a way quite quickly. And chief amongst these benefits, or these advantages, was just the quality, the joy and intimacy of friendship. Really, is something that was a bit unexpected, really, and that's only deepened over the years. And that friendship, is friendship that springs from a common endeavor, walking a common path, and sharing values. Yeah. And with that friendship, a vitality, a creativity of exploring the Buddha path together. So I want to say a little bit more about the individual benefits, the benefits to the individual of practicing Sangha. Yeah. So I was just looking at some of the things that Bhante has talked about Sangha. And again, for me, it's just coming back to this thing of, he talked about Sangha being a commitment to be in relationship with others. So yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. It's simple to say, but what does it mean? What does it mean to practice that? And again, Bhante says a little bit more here. He says, through being in relationship, we get to know ourselves. And of course, by extension, we get to know others. We get to know ourselves more deeply through the communication that happens within Sangha. Yeah. And it's through something of the challenge of that communication, the challenge of real, intimate, immediate communication, that we get to know ourselves. That real communication, in a way, disturbs us. It can be disturbing. It disturbs aspects of ourselves that maybe we've pushed out of our awareness. So, but in the communication, and I've invariably found that communication is within a kindly, considerate way. Getting to see more of ourselves, it enables us, and it's enabled me to then, to transform and to work with different aspects of myself that I may be pushed out of the way. And I'd like to argue that without that kind of communication, that depth of the communication that we get in Sangha, it's easy to fool ourselves. Yeah. It's easy to ignore aspects of our character and personality, to bypass those elements. Whole areas of our psyche can be bypassed. So in contrast, friendship in the Sangha draws us out. Yeah, draws us out within a sort of trusting, kindly environment. And this brings about integration. We get into contact with more of ourselves. And it also draws out deeper emotions and that we can transform and move. So with this communication, we get to know ourselves more deeply. And there's the joy of getting to know other people as well. There's the depth. There's always more depths. I know people who for years and years, even decades, and then I find out something more about them, quality or something I didn't know. And that's lovely that there's so much depth to other people. So it's common that people say when they get involved in Sangha, the Sangha, that they feel able to be more themselves. In a way, as people get involved, as I got involved, it enables one to peel back the layers of self, the layers that one presents, the more outer layers that one presents to others. And we begin to see what begins to be revealed is our deeper yearnings, our aspirations. We connect with the deeper aspirations. And the Sangha really connects and really those aspirations are taken seriously and encouraged. Yeah. We're also able to reveal sometimes our failings. And again, I hope it's the case in most cases, but certainly the ideal is that we're not judged on those failings. Yeah. They're heard, they're listened to. We're able to listen to each other, but we relate on the basis of what is the highest in us, what we can become, our potential. That's a quality of Sangha. So I want to say a little bit about my experience of deepening Sangha and how that happened for me. So after I finished my degree in Manchester, I came down to Cambridge and I started working, as Amachandra mentioned, in Windhorse trading. So as a young man, I came to Cambridge and I started working in this Buddhist business. And then we were very small. There weren't that many of us. And it was very early on. There weren't things worked out. We didn't really even know what it meant to work in a Buddhist business, a right livelihood, team-based right livelihood. So what I found myself in was something of you could say a Sangha workshop. Yeah. It was a mutual laughter over there. We were exploring. There's definitely an element of exploring what it meant to practice the Dharma in a team context. In a way, this hadn't been done before. The Dharma hadn't really been brought to the work context in quite the same way before, and we explored. We were exploring what that meant. So I found it very exciting to try and bring the Buddhist principles into this work team context. And I think my experience has led to really appreciating the transformative power of working in teams, whether in a business or whether in the center or elsewhere. There's something about working together in a team that really helps. In a way, you get a flavor of that in a study group, don't you? You get a flavor of that. But my experience was working day in, day out with other people. It creates quite an intensive situation. And sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't work so well. But often it worked well. And through that kind of communication, I felt a deepening connection with Sangha, I felt deeper friendships. Yeah. So what are the conditions? What are the conditions that make team work? So firstly, a common goal. Yeah. I think if a team is going to work as a Sangha context to deepen friendships and Sangha, it really helps to have a common goal, a common project. And that common project presents objective demands. Yeah. And that I think is quite an important aspect. So in Windhorse trading, Windhorse evolution, our goal was to, amongst other things, was to raise funds, to make money for the Dharma, for the Triratna community across the world. And in fact, this place we're sitting in here was raised from funds from that project. So having an external goal, amongst others, enabled to provide an objective touchstone. And that's really helpful, I think, in making a team work as a Sangha. Secondly, having common values. For example, the principles of the precepts, and having an openness to engage in kindly communication is important too. So common values are really important. And then again, a commitment to engage with each other, to come back to friendship. In a way, in this kind of business, this kind of team context, both the task reflects one back. The task tells one a story. It's a mirror. The task is a mirror for oneself, and also other people are a mirror. So, but a commitment to that friendship, a commitment to engaging, helps to reflect oneself back, and it highlights areas that we need to work on. And for me, it also, working in a team, also you get a sense that your actions have consequences. So you can see the strengths of how you can act in the world, and you can have an influence. And this really reflects back and reinforces a sort of sense of an understanding and a commitment to understanding karma, I think. Anyway, I could say more and more about my experience with team-based right livelihood. But I think, in a way, for me, it really helped to develop deep and lasting friendships. I think probably my closest, my longest lasting friendships are those of people I worked with closely in this kind of context. So it's a very rich thing. So I'm mentioning that partly just to say a bit about what my experience was, but also just to sort of, in a way, draw out this sense of team. And in a way, a team is a sort of a mini Sangha. It not only really communicates and draws out the qualities of Sangha, but it trains us, in a sense, to appreciate and get more out of the wider Sangha, I think. So I mention this not because we're not all going to go off, and I'm not saying we should all go off and work in team-based right livelihood. That's not possible or even desirable in many cases. But I think there are team contexts in which we can engage and experience the benefits of. One of the things is supporting classes. So as I've got more involved in the centre, I've been supporting classes, and I've really enjoyed getting to know people through supporting classes together. It's really lovely to see people giving and learning and enjoying and being in communication with those people who come along. So supporting classes is something I think is a great and a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun as well as being drawing out this quality of Sangha. And in a way, going on retreat is sort of joining a temporary team, as it were. You could look at it like that. We're both on retreat, we're both living and, as it were, working and studying together. And that's a very rich thing to do. We can have a very full sense of Sangha, sort of on retreat. It can encompass all the different elements of our experience. And really, we can really see what it is to lead the Dharma life. So I'm moving on, nearly there. So just to recap a little, I've tried to show and draw out some of the benefits to us individually through practicing Sangha, through engaging more deeply in our contacts with each other. in a way, what we're doing is we're building a network of friendships. Yeah, the Sangha is a network of friendships. Without friendships, without deepening friendships, then we won't get that ever-widening circle. In a way, that expanding the Sangha out and communicating to more and more people needs to really be based in deeper and deeper friendships among ourselves. So I think that's really important. So as we see and we engage and we experience the benefits of Sangha, we gradually identify more and more with our local Sangha. In a way, our practice needs to be rooted in our local Sangha. And we begin to see that actually with others, like when we're supporting a class together, we can communicate the Dharma much more effectively within a Sangha, within a team, within a class support team. That's what I love doing in the teams, the class teams, is just sharing and working with others to communicate and share the Dharma together with the people coming along. So we engage more, we see the benefit of Sangha, and we deepen our identification with our local Sangha. And also you will find yourself going on retreat, making connections from others from other Triratna centers. And I think this is a really important part of our practice as well, that it's not just our local Sangha, but we connect with different Sanghas, because the different Sanghas within Triratna have different qualities, or they emphasize certain things. And it's really lovely to engage with people from, well, I'm really again fortunate to connect with people from Mexico, Australia, India. Our Sangha, our community stretch out beyond the world. I think there's a lot of richness and a lot of benefit from that wider connection. So connecting with these ever wider circles of Triratna, we realize we are part of a common project, and that common project is informed by the bodhicitta, and it's to take out the Dharma to people around the world in our contemporary society. And again, it's different parts of our movement do that in different ways. You know, some online. There's Buddha Field. There's social projects in India. There's so many different ways in which that common project is carried forward. And personally, I get a lot from sort of hearing about those projects, and in a way, I kind of identify with them. I feel I'm involved in some extent with those projects. So in doing so, in connecting with those, I feel that I'm involved in a project that's bigger than me. It's not just about me. I connect with something which moves outwards through our Triratna community. And certainly, you know, the world really needs Sangha. Yeah. I could say a lot about this, but I'll just say something briefly. The world, humanity really needs Sangha. I don't think I need to really say much about this, because it's really there. You know, you turn on the news and it's there. The pandemic has highlighted how many people, you know, feel lonely, feel isolated, feel cut off, as it were. And there's the challenge of climate change that's there very much in our face now. So there's aspects of our culture, our economy, and technology that kind of pulls us away from Sangha, that can pull us away from Sangha. We can feel cut off, people feel cut off from what is around them, or we can feel overwhelmed by just the magnitude of the issues in the world and what we hear over the social online and through the news. So with all this, we really need Sangha. The world really needs Sangha. And on a deeper level, people locked into limited stories of self. In a way, the root problem of isolation, the root suffering, is that of seeing ourselves independently, or cut off, as it were, from others. So in the face of this suffering, our Sangha, our community, has so much to offer. Yeah, we've really got so much to offer. Making connections of real and enduring friendship, offering deeper meaning and a direction to people's lives, and ultimately being part of something bigger, something that's more universal, that we can manifest through our practice in the world. So just concluding now. So I think our practice of Sangha needs to keep in mind these different contexts. Yeah. So we can gain, firstly, so much personally, so many benefits from being involved in the Sangha. And as I think Amrachandra was saying, for most of us, we wouldn't really progress without the Sangha. We need the Sangha. Yeah. I tend to feel a bit suspicious if someone says to me, "Oh, I don't really need the Sangha. I know how to practice on my own." I tend to feel a bit suspicious about that. I think nearly everyone needs the Sangha. We need that to grow. So there's a personal benefit, and then there are benefits of connecting and identifying with something a bit bigger than ourselves, and I think engaging with our local Sangha in different ways. We can offer mutual support to each other. We can offer inspiration, and we can help our fellow Dharma farers. And then finally, I think it's important just to keep in mind an awareness of what the Sangha has to offer the world, that wider context. We need not to be cut off. Yes, we going on retreat is important and deepening our own awareness, but we need to still appreciate that the world needs the Dharma, it needs the Sangha. So yes, a couple more minutes I wanted to share a little bit about, as well as working in the team-based library, I was fortunate enough also to live at various times in Buddhist residential communities. And again, that's something that I've really appreciated and learned something from over the years. I must have lived at various times, not all in one go, with I was counting up the other day, it's over 50 people. Thank goodness it wasn't all at the same time. And yeah, people from all over the world, from all different cultures. Actually, I think at Windhorse once we had over 20 nationalities working together at one point. So I've gained so much from living and working with people of different cultures, different temperaments, different backgrounds. Very rich in seeing what one's own culture is and what one brings. That this isn't just a reality. This is my conditioning. This is what I'm bringing to the situation. So I've experienced many benefits of living in community. So again, I'm not here to encourage all you to go and live in community. But what I would like to say, I think I think inside or outside a physical community, I think we can live from the principles of community. And in a way, for me, that is about sharing more of our Dharma lives. It's about involving ourselves with our friends, or more of our life with our friends. So sharing things, sharing time, sharing our possessions, sharing our books. It's about considering the needs of our friends and doing things together, going to see a play or playing tennis, doing things together, as well as studying and meeting for a coffee. Those things I think are really important, that we share those aspects of our lives. And what about, hopefully I can say this now with the pandemic easing a bit, is welcoming people into our homes. Invite people around for dinner. Invite your study group around for dinner. Let them see a bit more of you in your home. I think that's all part of developing and expanding what it means to be a Sangha. So I'll end by just reminding us, I think Sangha is a practice. Yeah, it means again and again coming back and exploring what it means to be in relationship with others in the Sangha. There's the teachers of the past that I mentioned at the beginning. Just allowing their blessing, their adhisthana, as it were, to come down and influence you. There's being open to our own teachers, our people with varying and different experience within Triratna. And then of course, there's our more closer spiritual friends, those we maybe spend time with. I think it was Gampopa, someone can correct me, said that he said ordinary, but I don't think these friends are really ordinary, but our closest friends, maybe people, our peer friends, he said are the most important, at least at the beginning of our practice of the spiritual life. So really value those connections and maybe think, how can you be more of a friend? How can you take those relationships deeper? And so I'm saying, Sangha is a practice. And what conditions are there? What are the conditions for Sangha to flourish? How can we share more of our Dharma life? Yeah. And, and there's that last element of being open, welcoming. The Sangha, the world really needs, humanity really needs the Sangha. How can we be welcoming? How can we be open? How can we extend a hand of friendship to those who are receptive, who are interested in taking that understanding of the Dharma, their involvement with the Sangha more deeply? So I think if we can do those things, we can reflect in that way, then our Sangha will indeed be an ever-widening circle. Okay, I will leave it there. Slightly over time, but not too much.